On today's episode of Murfreesboro Storytellers, we travel down West College Street to the Old Armory, the home of Rutherford County Emergency Management, and we find out more about their operations and how they serve our community. Welcome to Murfreesboro Storytellers. We're pleased today to welcome as our guest Lieutenant Colonel Farrell T.K. Kast, who is Director for Emergency Management for Rutherford County. Colonel Kast, welcome.
Thank you, and by the way, I'm retired. I'm retired, Lieutenant Colonel.
That has an RET after your name,
yeah,
right? Okay.
yes.
I still know you as Colonel from ROTC at MTSU.
Yes, and it seemed like every big event at the school, I ran into you.
We always saw each other and enjoyed being together.
Yes, sir.
How many years were you in the Army?
33 years. Most of that was spent as an officer. My first 6 years, I was an enlisted man.
ROTC from the University of Tennessee at Chattanooga?
Yes, sir. Proud moccasin. So really loved my time there. And that's one of the reasons why I ended up settling back here and staying in Murfreesboro, because once my wife, once the Army got us back in Tennessee, my wife said, we're staying. So you do what Mama says.
Absolutely. You retired from the military then when you left MTSU?
Yes, I did.
And then went into this job as emergency management?
Yeah, there was a little bit of a gap there, and I found out from another veteran that this position was open, Jeff Davidson, who's a retired colonel, Army colonel, and he told me to put in for it. And there's a lot of similarities between military planning, especially logistics, and emergency management planning as well. So not that there hasn't been a learning curve, there has been one. Sure. A very steep one in some cases, but overall there's a lot of similarities, and I like the adherence to a mission. Mission-driven person, being in the military, that's the way it is. So this is a very good fit for me.
Tell us a little bit more about your years in the military then. What were some of your duties?
Well, first I started off, the first half of my career, was an infantry officer, commanded a company in Hawaii, which was really nice. Then I moved over to logistics, and the highlight of that is I was the G3 for the logistics command, the operations officer, G3 for logistics command for all the logistics, Army logistics in the Middle East. And after that tenure was up, I applied to be a professor of military science, which is how we met, and was told MTSU was open, and I jumped on it.
Worked out wonderfully well.
Yes.
I'm sure it gives you a great thrill to have trained so many young men through ROTC, see them go into the military and have successful careers.
Yes, and what's fun is, especially with social media now, I can kind of keep up with some of the former cadets who are now lieutenants and captains that I helped train. Sure. And it makes you feel like you left something that was really worthwhile to help, of course, continue to defend the country.
Well, Colonel, let's talk about your position with Rutherford County in emergency management. That covers a lot of areas, I would think.
Well, really what we focus on is mitigation, preparation, response, and recovery for large-scale emergency events. We work closely with both fire and police at the local level, as well as state agencies. As a matter of fact, we're the conduit between the county and the state. Normally when you have a big event, the most likely and most dangerous here is probably a tornado. Right. People may not be aware, but you do get overwhelmed with needs. The fire doesn't have enough equipment, the police don't have enough folks, so you have to get assets from elsewhere. We're the conduit with the state to request those assets. And also, we're also the conduit with the state when it comes to help from FEMA, federal level. Okay. And that's usually in the way of funding, et cetera. So those are the things that we did. And we do that, like I said, through mitigation, preparation, response, and recovery.
So as far as all of that equipment, you don't actually have the equipment, but you are the agency that gets it to those that are in need.
Yes, because if every county had everything they needed for every possible scenario, you couldn't afford it.
Sure.
So there are some very analyzed risks that are taken. For instance, the ice storms we just had, and ice and snow removal equipment. There makes no sense for a county in the middle of Tennessee to own a lot of that, like a county out of New York State would need. So we go with less. When we need it, we can request it, but we haven't needed it in the terms of days and days and days of not being able to get out of homes and such as that.
serving in the Army in Massachusetts, I can relate to that because I remember the winters there where they can certainly have to have that equipment at all times.
So there's some things we do take, and it's not, I hate to use the word risk, but what you do is you do an analysis and you see what your most likely threats are and what your most dangerous threats are to the area. And that's what you try to cover down on.
What kind of preparation do you do now when you don't have a tornado, you don't have a massive fire raging in the area or ice storm?
Well, what we do under the area of preparation, there's a couple of things that stick out. One is training, whether it become the FEMA's instant command training for all your public safety or hazmat training in case there's some type of hazardous material release as well. Encompassed in that training is also any exercise we do. As a matter of fact, there's an exercise planned for Smyrna Airport in the next few months. I think around the June time.
And what will you be simulating there?
What they're going to be simulating there is a downed aircraft, and we'll play our role as well as other public safety will be involved as well. In addition to the training and the exercises, the other thing has with the scenarios is we do planning. This county, a lot of people don't know, we have a basic emergency operations plan, and we update it every 5 years. We actually update it every time we do any type of exercise or scenario to make sure it fits what's needed in this county. So there's a lot of planning that goes along with this. There's a lot of exercising so that you know the resources and the people that you have to deal with in case something does happen. The comment a lot of the first responders make is the emergency is the wrong time to get to know people.
Absolutely.
So
too late then.
Too late then, yes.
We are located, as we said earlier in the program, at what I knew growing up as the old National Guard Armory on the old Nashville Highway or on West College Street. And this serves as your headquarters here, correct?
Yes. Now, this is not the only thing we do. We also respond on scene. Emergency response is also part. For a small event or an event before it develops into something large, we will move out with what's called the Mobile Command Center, which is a big RV with a bunch of radios on it and a place for everybody to go and do some planning. That way we can support the incident commander in a better way, especially with a place to sit down, do some planning and communications. When an event gets to a certain size where it encompasses a large amount of the county, we will activate this Emergency Operations Center and bring in emergency services coordinators throughout the county. Emergency services coordinators could be county employees, they could be city and town employees from within state agencies. Volunteer organizations have a seat in there as well. So it encompasses a lot of folks to coordinate the efforts to support that incident commander for whether it be a tornado, whether it be a hazmat release, whatever.
And they would operate right here on
Right
West
here.
College
The
Street.
coordinators would operate right here.
Do you coordinate with E91 also in your operations?
Yes, we do. As a matter of fact, we of course, you've been to the same meetings you attended with them. But yeah, we do coordinate with Steve Smith over there, not on much as a day-to-day basis, but a lot of the things we utilize to help keep the public informed and the communications piece.
That's what I was wondering about. In case of an emergency or an event, because I know they have a mobile control center too.
Yes.
That they would bring on location.
Yes.
So you could have yours as well as theirs.
And theirs is smaller. I think he's gotten his down to where he doesn't have to put it in a trailer. I don't want to speak for him, but I think he's gotten his where his basically a suitcase now. As this stuff gets smaller, it gets easier and more portable. The other thing that we get from 911 is they funded what's called Alert Rutherford, and I'd like to use this time to plug it.
Okay.
If you have a landline in this county, you're already enrolled in Alert Rutherford. We have your line. We can notify you of not just weather events, but let's say the law enforcement is doing something in your neighborhood and they want to keep you informed or tell you to stay in your home, whatever it may be.
Which in a way is a reverse E911.
Reverse, yes, sir. And that works well for what we call landlines. Cell phones, people need to register, and that's what I like to encourage all the residents to do is go Google Alert Rutherford and sign your cell phones up so you can get these alerts when you're not necessarily standing in your home. And also, as you know, a lot of people don't use landlines anymore. All they have is cell phones.
The number of landlines is decreasing every month, and,
yes, sir.
And the number of wireless increasing.
Yes, sir.
Very definitely.
So if I could get everybody within the county, by the way, each city and town has the ability to touch this system off too. So if Smyrna has an event, they can literally just alert the folks in Smyrna.
Okay.
Or Murfreesboro. And they can even break it down to a block They don't have to alert the whole town. So, so I would encourage anyone listening right now, Google Alert Rutherford and sign up.
Google Alert Rutherford.
Yes.
And then you just sign up, put
Sign
in
up.
your phone number, your name and address.
Yes,
or-
and you can tell it what type of alerts. You can even tell it whether you want to hear about, say, a tornado watch, or do you want to hear about just warnings. You know, some people want to hear about watches and warnings. Other folks would rather just hear the warnings.
Right.
So you can tell it what level alert you want, what types of alerts you want, everything.
There was a large class going on when we first came into the building today. This room, as you tell me, is used by other organizations in the county for training.
Yes,
The-
and
the
like I said,
building.
one of the things we provide this as a resource for training, because it's not set up as the Emergency Operations Center every day. We can very
Sure.
quickly just move the tables around. We have all the plugins for the computers around, and we will quickly rearrange it. And that's pretty standard throughout most counties in the state, that the EOC is a dual purpose room. Plus, it also does something else. A lot of the agencies that come here and use this room for training at least now know where the EOC is.
Very good.
So once again, when it's an emergency, it's too late to look up where the EOC is located.
How many, what size staff do you have other than
There's
yourself?
me and 3 other folks, and I know that sounds like a small EMA staff, but it's rather large compared to some of your other counties. In some counties, the EMA manager is either dual-headed with another position, or it's actually a volunteer. I think Cannon Counties is a volunteer.
Okay.
So as you get to be larger, you have more threats. You know, and by threats, I mean you have a larger population, more people can get hurt. And there's a different type of threat also in Rutherford County. We have over 120 different sites, companies that have reportable quantities of hazardous materials that they deal with safely every day.
That many?
Yes,
And
the number grows every day.
You've inventoried those, or you do inventory?
Well,
them?
they send
How
us,
do you-
what we do is if they need help working out their emergency operations plan for their site, we'll provide some expertise there. But they're also required to file their plans with us, so that if any first response agencies in the county have to go to their site in case of a spill, we've got the floor plans, we know where the bad stuff is, we know what it is, that type of thing. So, and when I say reportable quantities, that's going to depend on which type of hazardous material it is. And of course, you can imagine some of your bigger companies are around here. But yeah, 120 sites, that's not a bad thing. That actually tells you industry's growing around
Oh,
here.
yes,
So you don't,
I agree with you, I
It's,
understand.
as long as, in every day, they're dealing with this stuff quite safely, and they do all the right things. And they come to us if they have some questions or need some help. But they do a great job. Since I've been on the job the past couple of years, there's only been one small business that had a spill where the Tennessee Department of Environment and Conservation and EPA had to get involved with. It wasn't huge, but they needed to remove some soil and that type of thing. But most of the spills we respond to are basically diesel, that type of thing, or an illegal burn where somebody's burning substances that cause toxic chemical type of release. Or lately, we've been responding a lot to natural gas type of leaks and things of that nature. And a lot of what we do is we're there to record it, make sure that the owner of the spill does the right things and is there to fix the problem. And then we report within the parameters set forth by TDEC, report any type of spill that might come up.
So it's not your role to repair it or
No.
take care of the situation, but you monitor it, report it, make sure that it is done
Yes.
correctly.
And provide expertise. If it's something we're not familiar with, or the fire department is normally who has the men on the ground, or the EMS's SORT team has the guys on it, if they need some other levels of expertise, because there's millions of types of chemicals in this world. We're not going to know everything about everything. And through this county, it's, you have I-24, which is a major area. There's chemicals that are carried on it every day, and there's 35 miles of CSX track that goes from north to south and south to north here, and there's also chemicals hauled there too. So it's something we keep our eye on, but it's not something that citizens need to be concerned about, because like I said, these companies and these agencies are doing the right things.
Talking about hazmat and the duties of your agency, if a company has a major spill, company X has a major spill, Their duty then is to report it to you first, or how do they go about it?
Well, normally we get the report from the sheriff's office dispatch.
Oh, the agency that's dealing with it.
Usually even if it's within a city, they'll call sheriff's office and say we request EMA on site, and that's when we'll roll. In my agency, one of us is always on call to respond. Okay. 3 of the 4 of us go on call, so every third week one of us is ready to respond to any call in. But when we get out there, they're supposed to have their own, if they don't already have their own cleanup company on contract, we have a list of companies that we don't recommend any one in particular. We just say, you got to pick one of these. And we stick around, and we stick around until a qualified cleanup company comes and lets us know what their plan is. And then we, of course, will do follow-ups after the fact to make certain it did get cleaned up. In the meantime, we're informing TDEC.
What's the most challenging situation you've had since you've been in this job of an emergency?
You know what? I've been lucky in that it's been fairly quiet since I've been here, but we've had a couple of incidents that were kind of a big deal. One a few months ago, last fall, was the incident on the square where there was a suspected hazardous material in a judicial building. Ended up being no type of substance at all. But that was when everything showed up. I was talking to.
I've never seen so many emergency vehicles in one spot in all my life as I was headed down toward the square at the time the alarm went out.
So, and what was good for me is one, no one got hurt, and there was really nothing to it. But I got to see everything at play, everything from state assets, such as TEMA, as well as some of the National Guard's military assets, their CSD Civil Support Team, which has a mobile lab. Those guys were made available to us. As a matter of fact, they were making pretty good time trying to get here from Knoxville. They were there doing some training. But talking to the TBI was on site because of the nature of it. So I got to deal with a lot of players. It was a great learning thing. The good thing is no one got hurt. Murfreesboro Fire, as well as the sheriff's office, were the incident command on the scene. It was a unified command. And they both performed admirably. And it was really neat to see all of it in one place. As far as incidents, we've not had any huge ones other than that one spill that we had. It was a small business. It was a business that didn't carry as I understand it, I don't think they carried the proper type of business insurance. So the state and eventually EPA had to get involved because there were like 20 loads of dirt that had to be hauled out of there that were contaminated. And of course, it didn't. The business had to pay what he could pay. But the EPA took care of quite a bit of it. So that was another big one that we had. And of course it was pouring rain while it was happening. So there are a few incidents that happened, but what we really are, like I said, the biggest thing we're concerned with is we're in the middle of it right now, which is tornado season around here. Our greatest events of tornadoes are going to be March, April, May. Doesn't mean that's only 3 months you have them. That's just when you're most likely, and your more intense ones. November is probably the 4th month where you also have some. But that doesn't mean any other time of year doesn't happen. So this is time I kind of want people to pay attention to their plan at the family level. All right, you got to have a room in that house, an internal room with as many walls between you and the wind. You need to have your 72 hours worth of food, medicines that you need, water, just in case we do have a large event and you and your family need to get by on your own while first responders are taking care of more pressing needs. So that's the thing that we're pushing right now.
Now, you weren't in this position when we had the tornado go through the Riverview subdivision, were you?
No, you talking about 2009?
I guess it was 2009.
I was just looking for homes a month after that happened. Was that the Easter?
Thereabouts,
yeah.
Yes.
I was actually out looking at homes a month after that, wondering why there were blue tarps all over everything. So I just barely missed that one. The Army had just moved me from Fort Bragg.
Yeah, that was a major incident here for the community.
Yes, sir.
Yeah.
And that was probably we didn't hit as bad with the floods, but it was a big event. Those are our 2 last really large
floods.
Events.
That's another situation you'd be involved in?
Yes, any large scale emergency, we would be involved in that. And helping coordinate other assets we need in the area that you wouldn't normally have. And also coordinating support from FEMA after the fact. And that's also, since you mentioned floods, that's where, the 4 things that we focus on. I talked about preparation. I talked a little bit about what we do as far as response, mitigation. Mitigation are projects we work with probably county engineers and such as that to prevent any damage from a problem in the first place. And one of the things that's most common that most people understand when we talk mitigation is houses in a floodplain, coordinating the FEMA grants to move those people out of those areas so those homes never get flooded again because they're not in the floodplain anymore. In other words, basically buy out the persons in those areas. And there's a lot of rules to that, as you can imagine. So we would help out with that. So that's the mitigation piece. And one thing that most people are familiar with is recovery.
Sure.
Once the event happens, recovery takes a long time. We're not done in 24 hours. And that's where you have things like the Emergency Operations Center full up coordinating recovery efforts. And it can take months.
I remember the mitigation, I guess, and recovery as well from the flood of 2010 in Nashville in Davidson County. There's still some recovery going on from that.
Yes, sir.
To resolve
You're right.
the situation and hopefully to make sure it won't happen again.
Yeah. And like I said, but a lot of people think recovery is that first few hours afterwards. No, there's a lot. Debris management by itself is a huge, huge undertaking. And we've already got a plan for that here.
Now, who would do that?
Well, we would help. It's part of our basic emergency operations plan, but we lean a lot on the expertise of the solid waste director,
Sure.
Mac
Okay.
Nolan. He knows all the assets. He owns all the trucks. We'd also depend on the highway department as well. Like I said, these are not what's great about the way this works is these are not organizations that we have, for lack of a better term, command over. These are folks we work with who are part of the community and part of the government to get the county back on its feet when something happens. And they all do their part. So, and like I said, even though I wasn't here, you can tell what happened after the Easter tornado, after the floods, I think 2010 floods, of how everybody pulls together and they do their part. And even after the ice storm. One of the things I like to brag to other counties about is, when we closed down the non-essential portions of the county government and the cities did in this county, and the schools closed, and MTSU even closed.
Yes.
Residents took the hint and stayed off the roads for the most part. They did
Really
what they
made a
should do.
difference. I've not ever seen it that happen that much before.
Yes, but what it
years gone
takes
by.
is don't tell people don't be on the road, and then you are still bringing non-essential people to work. That's
right.
real. And even I forgot to mention, some of our businesses also curtailed their activities as much as they could, just to get by. And that's what I mean is, do we need to own a bunch of snow plows and ice removal equipment and such as that? No, because we're only going to have that situation once every couple of years at the most. But what we do need is people to understand it's only 1 or 2 days every couple of years. Take a knee. And that's what the residents here do. And I also have a suspicion that Rutherford County residents, Murfreesboro, Smyrna, and Laverne especially, these folks have a plan. They do think about the things we discussed. They do listen, and they do have a plan for when things aren't perfect in their town. And
they counsel with you to help put that plan together and get advice.
Well,
from you,
now not at necessarily the individual citizen level, but our base emergency
at the city level.
Yes, yes. As a matter of fact, Tim Hooker here, the assistant director, is just helped Laverne put their plan, review their plan. They already had a plan. Review their plan and update it. And so we're always available to help out with those types of things.
As we continue our growth here in Rutherford County and Middle Tennessee, does that just increase the problem or the potential for problems? And how are you going to deal with the future?
Well, first,
what are your needs?
I wouldn't call it problems. It's going to make it more challenging. You're going to put there's 600 600 square miles in this county. Yeah. You're going to have more people packed in there. They're talking about 600,000 by 2035.
Tremendous population
So,
growth,
so we're going to get there between now and then. We're just short of 300 now. Maybe we're at 300 at this point. So yeah, those are going to create challenges. What that's going to mean for the county as a whole, not necessarily my office, is more adherence to emergency planning, more first response assets, because you got more folks out there, especially in the unincorporated parts of the county. You increase your fire protection especially, and you say, well, why do you care about fire? Well, those firemen also do a lot within emergency management. Mm-hmm. They're also qualified to take care of hazardous materials as well. So they do more than put out fires, which is important enough by itself. Of course, on the law enforcement side, you're going to need a greater presence as well. But from our side, I can see where at some point in the future, this office would start getting a little bit bigger because of the nature of what we're doing and more threats we have to worry about, especially when you're talking about hazardous materials, business growing such as that. I don't know what form that would take at this point, but I can see where that would happen. Like I said, we're mostly a planning and a cell here at EMA. And we're also, like I said, we respond and we have the relationships with the state and other agencies to bring in what we need when we need it.
If you had one wish for anything for the future, what would it be? Maybe it's not a fair question.
Well, I'm like anybody else. I always want to have more folks to deal with what we're having to deal with. Yeah. And I don't need fancy equipment. I need more smart people. Am I hurting right now? I've got great people working for me now, but in the future I can see where there's going to be a need to expand this office.
Yeah, okay. Well, all the way from North Florida to Chattanooga to Murfreesboro, as well as around the world in your military career. Where in Florida did you grow up?
Near Pensacola, Florida.
Near Pensacola, okay.
Yes. And that's, people ask me, why'd you get in the Army? I says, well, I saw the Navy every day. So that wasn't exotic enough for me.
I understand.
But no, and I'm very proud of what I've done in the military, and I'm very proud of what I'm doing here and who I get to work with.
Well, you've had a great career all the way around and doing a great job here for Rutherford County, helping not only to keep us safe, but also to help us get out of emergency situations and be able to get back to normal.
Yes, sir.
Let's one more time remind folks that have cell phones, cellular devices, how to get their phone registered so they'll be able to get the calls about emergencies.
Okay. All you need to do is get on the internet and Google Alert Rutherford. Also in that is not just how to register, but it'll also tell you how to go in and get the app for your phone and just have that on your smartphone as well. Real easy, just sign up today.
Very good. Good advice. Any final words or thoughts that you have, Colonel, as we conclude our program?
Just tell everybody, have your plan at home for the storm, and always be ready to sustain yourself and your family for 72 hours.
Very good. Lieutenant Colonel retired Tharrell T.K. Kast, who is Director of the Emergency Management Services for Rutherford County. Thank you very much, Tharrell. We enjoyed talking with you and we appreciate you being with us.
All right, thank you.
This has been Murfreesboro Storyteller.